All right, we're live on YouTube. This is Thursday, February 17th, and this is our fortnightly outreach meeting. Before we get into the agenda, we'd like to go around the room and do some quick introductions. I will go first, and everyone, after you introduce yourself, randomly select the next person to go. Keep us on our toes. My name is Jen Lampton. I'm joining from Oakland, California. I'm very excited about all of our outreach efforts that are going on right now and all of the new people who are helping us work on them, who've popped up in the community recently. So thank you all for your contributions. John, do you want to go next?
I'm John Romine. I work at UC Irvine, and I am hoping to use Backdrop CMS as my future for my Drupal 7 sites. Robert?
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet, coming to you from Altadena, California, a little bit north of John. I've been working on documentation and form things and hopefully helping things out. And I'll pass it to Sarvashri.
Okay, my name is Sarvashri, and I'm in Walnut Cove, North Carolina, and I'm working to see how we can get beginners up to speed on Backdrop. Let's go with Greg next.
Hi, my name is Greg. I'm joining from Greece. So many things. I can't keep up with the community, which is a good thing. But yeah, in general, interested in anything related to Backdrop in any way that I can help. I'll pass it on to Martin.
I'm Martin. I'm in the UK. I'm building sites with Backdrop, fixing things where I can, and I'm also involved with looking after the LinkedIn page that we've got. So starting to do some pushes out there for the Backdrop Live. And we'll go to Joseph.
I am Joseph. I'm a developer from Las Vegas, Nevada. Tim?
Yeah, I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota right now. And yeah, it's been a really, really busy time in our community right now. So a lot of things going on, and talk about Backdrop Live today. Irina?
Hi, my name is Irina Zaks. I'm open source evangelist and web developer, and my main mission professional is to support websites and applications for research and academia. And Backdrop is a great tool for the sites that we're building because they are often very custom and require very specialized designs.
Drew?
So apologies, I need to name someone. Drew, can you give
Yes, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm good, no problem. So I'm Drew Gordon. I'm here kind of new in the community, but I've known of Backdrop for a long time. And I'm interested in thinking about and seeing there are ways I can help, especially around Backdrop Live. And I'll confess, I was like trying to keep track. Am I the last person?
Yes.
Or is there someone who still needs to go?
Did we get Robert? We did, okay.
Yeah, I think he's the last person.
Okay.
So, should I? So, we have a little bigger group than usual, although it varies. So, yeah, thank you everybody for coming. I assume that at least a few people here, I think Drew just confirmed that, are specifically thinking about Backdrop Live today. And I'd just like to quickly follow up. In our last meeting, we had kind of a big discussion, a bigger picture discussion, and I just sort of want to about how to sort of better manage our outreach stuff. And I just want to quickly sort of say that after that meeting, I drafted a proposal and have been having some conversations with people about trying to maybe structure our activities a little bit more in terms of having maybe a more formal outreach committee and doing some things like that. But I think we'll bypass maybe that conversation today because we got people here excited, I think, to talk about Backdrop Live and focus maybe specifically on that and or anything else, any of the other things that are happening in the community right now, around outreach. Yeah, so how should we get going? I suppose I could quickly give an update on sort of where we're at. The as everybody I think knows, Backdrop Live is an unconference, so we don't have a session selection committee process. People are nominating and putting things on the schedule, and I think we're doing really well so far compared to some of our previous events in terms of getting topics nominated and on the schedule already. I feel pretty good about the schedule right now, so that I'm not worried. Sometimes I'm spending a lot of time trying to recruit people to facilitate conversations, and I'm not too worried about that right now. I think our main concern right now is just getting people registered and maybe, seeing if we can't increase our participation substantially this time, because we've got a good start and we've got such enthusiastic folks involved. So, that's where I would be putting my effort. I think Irina, Jen, and I, with a lot of help from other people in terms of testing, have been working on the website, and I think made a number of improvements. Jen, thank you for the work you did on the next steps block, getting that working much better. If anybody has any feedback on that, let us know.
Wait, don't let us know about the bugs we already know about, but let us know if you find new things.
Didn't you fix all the bugs we know about?
No, there's one I'm
No?
working on right now.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Hopefully I'll have fixed it by the end of the meeting. We'll see how it goes.
There are registrations at about 14 right now, which is not a surprise, given it's early. Usually it's about a week or two before that we get most of our registrations. And we also haven't gotten a newsletter out yet, which is usually the big driver to get people subscribed. And I've been promising to do that for the last 3 days, and I've been disrupted. So I'll just keep pushing at that. If anybody is able to and wants to help with that, let me know. But social media wise, I think we've been trying to hit Twitter. I will say that we could use some retweets and some interaction with our Twitter account. I've been putting stuff out there on Twitter and it's not getting much reaction. And it does matter a lot if people retweet and like. We really see the impressions. I watch our Twitter analytics in our overall impressions have dropped quite a bit just because I think people aren't sort of engaging with our tweets. And if we get a little bit more engagement with our tweets, that should shoot that up. If people have ideas or suggestions, I've been doing most of the tweeting. I think Jen still, I assume it's you, Jen. I don't know that anybody else would be, has been doing a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I just did
people,
one. Not very much.
Well, a week or so ago, you replied to somebody too, I think. Anyways, there's been if there's any feedback on like what we should be tweeting or anything, please, that might be something to talk about today. Anyways, I don't know, any questions about where we're at before we jump into what we need to do, like the current status?
Just on Twitter, where you say you
Mhm.
want people liking and retweeting.
Mhm.
I don't use Twitter much, but if I was to sign up for an account just to purely like and retweet without any followers, would that make any difference, or is it only really if you've got people following you that it makes a difference?
Well, for retweeting, it wouldn't really help much, but for
Yeah.
liking, it wouldn't hurt, which does, just liking the post helps, and commenting from time to time, if people respond or engage. If we can get any kind of discussion going, that's really helpful. We did have somebody recently started a discussion about Drupal 7 and why people haven't upgraded. And a whole bunch of backdroppers got into that discussion, and I'm sure we got a lot of attention because of that. Especially once you start having discussions, that really increases the exposure a lot. So, yeah, and Martin, you're covering LinkedIn, so if you don't actually have a Twitter account, I don't want anybody to feel like they have to go out and start a Twitter account just for this. We have enough people that at least use Twitter occasionally already, that if we could just get them to help out a little bit, that should be enough. Luke has often volunteered. I don't know, I should check in with him to kind of help push us on Facebook. And I'll more directly ping him. I've been sort of CCing him on some stuff, hoping he would jump in and get some stuff going on Facebook, but I don't know if he has time right now. If anybody else is able to help out there on Facebook, that would be good. I don't use Facebook a lot. My main thing is Twitter. So, but we seem to have LinkedIn and Twitter covered pretty good.
I use LinkedIn for professional stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to check in there a little more often, and we'll try to engage with whatever LinkedIn content we have. Any other social media thoughts while we're on that? Okay. I feel like certainly Twitter is less useful than it used to be. There's just less talk about things like Drupal and Backdrop in Twitter. You know, a lot of the people that two or 3 years ago were following us seem less engaged. So I don't know if we can rely on that as much as we used to. But. Okay, so any other questions or observations about where we're at in terms of planning? Irina, you have been super involved in this and have a lot of ideas. Are there some things you want us to talk about today in terms of outreach for Backdrop Live?
To unmute and also turn this on. I think that events like Backdrop Live are important to advertise, and I think that there's a big step from having like a camp of developers to being able to present information for example, in academia, there's lots of decisions that are made by people who are not developers. And it is important that we speak in the language that they understand and see the value. Backdrop is very like the best tool for the job for certain applications. And I think if people can have this translation from whatever is technical language to whatever their needs are, this is where some of the presentations needs to happen. And another important part of this presentation needs to be in the business time when people are at work between roughly 9 and 4, whatever time zone we're addressing, which means that spots like 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. West Coast time, if we're trying to support universities in United States, that this presentations need to be at this time. This is kind of my 2 bits. And I'm not saying this is what Backdrop is about, but my goal is to support people. Like I've been providing tools for research and academia. My goal is to allow people continue doing their research with the money that they have. And so I'm coming with my, user profile personas, and I understand that other people will be coming from different perspectives. But you asked me, this is my, and this is why it would be really important to have presentations that demonstrate, like if we're addressing nonprofits needs to understand what's the value for them. Like you can take the website, we can drop it into new database. These are steps. This is how you can do it. This is example of design, and designs are important for end users, like people who are doing content management. Designs are important. That's why we want to show beautiful websites. So, and hopefully we can also let people know about these presentations in advance. So we have, I believe, and I'm looking at different things that are of like personal interest for me. So there, one is now I have competing presentation, which is great. Like Bootfitters, America's Bad Footers, very beautiful website. I looked at the site and thought, oh, this looks so cool. And Jen, was it a migration or was it a new build? You're muted.
It was an upgrade from Drupal 6.
Okay, so that is a great demo of like, okay, you can maintain your sites at a cost that you can afford. And it looks great. Because one of the challenges that I see, and I'm going to be very open about it, if website is very functional, but it's not visually appealing, it is very difficult for new customers to say, yes, I want this. It has to look good. And it is competing with WordPress templates. And whatever backdrop community can do to make it look prettier, like Bootstrap 5 theme is extremely important. Having this full width banner is very important. Having the opportunity to put 3 blocks on the front page without doing any extra work is very important. We need to have it out of the box. This is why I'm advocating for this thing. So people need to come and see things that are appealing. But I will be retweeting Best Bootfitters theme, not retweeting, but I'll be posting on LinkedIn. And I wanted to have a showcase with Andean studies. And my challenge is that it is on Saturday at 2 p.m. And so it will be harder for people who are like, who, you know, who are coming to, who work Monday through Friday, it will be harder to see that.
Sure. Well,
Somebody raised their hand, so I'm like,
did somebody else have something they want to? Oh, great, go ahead.
It's Greg.
I just wanted to say that I have a couple of sessions suggested, and Irina did make a good point with regards to target audience and time zones and time slots.
Mhm.
So if we are trying to target specific people, and I happen to hog key slots that for more technical people, I'm happy to move. Just let me know. Just want to say.
Sure. Maybe I'll say 1 or 2 things about the schedule in response to all of this. So first of all, I'll repeat, you know, that this event has been set up for a very broad general audience, you know, not targeted at these specific groups in a way, and that, but it's not wrong to talk about that. I think those are important conversations to have. But the whole, you know, the on and off scheduling, we're doing 3 hours on, 3 hours off. And our goal was to just create an event that was as inclusive as possible and reached as many time zones as possible and as many audiences as possible, which is why, you know, in Drupal camp planning, we run into this all the time in the old days. So should we be on Saturdays or should we be on Fridays? Because there's some groups that have been really active in the Drupal community that can't do events on weekdays. And then there are other groups that just don't do stuff on weekends. They just do weekdays. So we've tried to bridge that by going from Saturday to Sunday, or from Friday to Saturday. I think it's totally appropriate in my view to be thinking about, like, you know, who are the audiences on Friday and who are the audiences on Saturday, and we can try to shape the schedule a little bit to match that. We're not scheduling sessions, right? So anybody can name things. So in terms of if you see things that are missing from the schedule or that we'd like to see more of, we just have to find a facilitator, right? So it isn't right that we've made choice, you know, I would love to see a CVCRM session or a nonprofit session, but I'm already scheduled on about 5 sessions. So I need somebody else to do that. That's the issue, is recruiting somebody to do those. We have been working with two columns, 2 sessions per time slot for the last few events, but that's arbitrary. We're using virtual space. We can have as many sessions as we want. and it could definitely, some time slots, the block A, actually, let me share my screen as we're talking about the schedule. Here we go. Certainly, block A is probably the best attended block of traditionally, followed by, I think, block B, and then maybe on Saturday, right? Things start. Block C is in the evening in the US, and then we have an overnight block, which is intended for, more of our European or Australian audience. And then, we get pretty good attendance in block E and F on Saturday, although not as much as Friday. I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't have more rooms available in block A than we do in block B, if we need to. My goal, though, is I'm reluctant to open up too many slots in block A right off the bat, because then that totally fills up and everything else is empty. But I think we could talk about adding a spot here. The other thing, yeah, well, that's probably the big thing to say, is that we could probably add another slot. Well, I've also been hoping to get more registrations before I do that, because I'm a little bit concerned about having too many blocks when we've only got 14 people registered. If we got 40 or 50 people registered, which, and for those who haven't been involved, our registrations have been between 40 and 70 people, I think, in our previous Backdrop Lives. Usually about 40 to 50 is where we end up. And there's always a number of those who don't participate. So in any given time slot, I think in the last Backdrop Live, we had between 10 and 20 people participating almost at any given time, maybe up to 30, like during that first opening block.
Can I say something, Tim, real quick? Maybe I see how much work has gone into tweaking things and optimizing them, and maybe it's a bit too late now, but instead of making assumptions, because it's a very valid point that we should be accommodating for different time zones and targeted audiences, and also taking into account what their preference is with regards to weekend or weekday. But it seems to me that for the next round, for the next Backdrop Live, maybe we could allow people to not register for an event, but register for an account on the site, and then have some sort of availability hours and preferences. That's the same way that we do, what's the thing, the doodle thing that we do?
Sure.
Or a survey. Yes. So once we have enough registrations, and we can be flexible, like the same thing that I said about switching hours, so long as the hosts are willing to shift hours, then we could actually tweak towards the final week. Maybe we could tweak the schedule so that it meets the expectations and the schedule of most of the people, so that we can accommodate most of them. Just an idea.
Sure.
But yeah, but it's good to go with assumptions for this specific event.
Yeah, I mean, we're a few weeks away from the event, so I'd like to focus now on what we can do with this event. After every event, we talk about how to do it different next time, and we can entertain all kinds of ideas for how to make the next one better. But right now, I'm focused on March 11th and 12th, and how do we, what can we do to increase participation there? And I think what Greg was just offering was that is to free up some slots maybe in this first block, and move it. The thing about our session is also that it's an unconference, so the session is, the schedule can be fluid. We can move things around. We have little notes everywhere reminding people of that. And I understand that some people want to plan and they don't like that. But if we want an event where we have a really rigid schedule that's really targeted and all of that, then we have to plan a different event. That's really not what Backdrop Live is. So go ahead.
What I was saying is that if we had some statistics or metrics there that says, allowed people to say, I'm interested for this, two things. I'm interested for this thing, so that we can have a count of how many people. Then we can sort of like optimize the slots based on interest. And then also, out of those people that are interested, another option that says, this time suits me or not. That's it. So that we can tweak them to optimize it. All I'm saying, but just, we don't have to stress. There's other things that we're tweaking now, and but let's do it manually this time. was all I'm saying.
I started to work with adding of the flag module to use the flag module to allow people to say, I'm interested in a topic that's on the schedule, just so that we can start to see which topics are the most popular. But that's not working yet. And
Okay.
I think it's okay if we implement that in a week from now, when most people are starting to think more seriously about the schedule.
Exactly. I was about to ask, based on history, when is the more active period when it comes to registrations? Do people tend to register during the last week or ahead of time?
Well, I would say like 3 to 10 days in advance of the event is when most of the registrations happen.
Cool, thanks.
So, especially for a live event, but I mean, as Drew, I think, knows from Twin Cities Drupal Camp, I think we found most of our registrations coming like a week ahead of time, is my recollection. So I think that's common with camps in general. And it's always a battle. We're always fighting. How do we get people to register earlier, right?
Yep, I can confirm that.
So I mean, I think it's totally appropriate for us to like identify topics that we think we'd like to see on the schedule and try to encourage people to nominate them. I don't have a problem with trying to shuffle this, to adjust the schedule a bit. If people have thoughts about that, I'm gonna, since I'm sharing my screen, just sort of browse through. We have this, we're viewing this in Chicago Central Time. So on the Pacific Coast, it's starting at 8 a.m. We did shift the schedule 1 hour later than we've done in previous sessions, but we also tended in previous events to like not start with our plenary until slot 2, partly because that was so early. So I think by shifting it an hour later, we're actually getting more stuff in this first block. We did add this is an experiment. I got feedback. We've talked about doing kind of a social game block or something in the past. Jen and I and Sarvashri finally actually had a game session after the last Backdrop Live, but usually we haven't promoted them in advance, and it's just been at the end of the conference. And I stuck in 2 blocks this time. One of them sort of between, technically it's between A and B, but we don't have a good way to display that, so it just shows up as part of block A. Here we've got block B. Go ahead.
Now, going back to what you said about people registering as early as possible, when these are paid events, they have early birds, but we have donations, we don't have this. I'm not sure how much swag we have around. Could we try to give people things if they register early? I mean, that could convince people.
Yeah, the problem is mailing it. When you add the cost of shipping in, it ends up being a big loss for a Backdrop.
Okay.
Especially internationally.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, there's cost to doing that, which is the financial and the time and the logistic cost. Whether or not there would be some benefit in trying to figure out how to do that, and I think Jen might be thinking right now our only real swag I think is t-shirts and sweatshirts, right?
We've got stickers too, which I think might be easier to manage.
Right.
But if the international shipping gets really complicated.
How about non-tangible gifts, like subscriptions from people that might be willing to sponsor the event or something like that, like I don't know, PHP Storm's licenses or things like that, which don't require shipping.
Offhand, like that sounds like a great idea. Go ahead, somebody speak up.
We could also, not necessarily for this one, but if we've got kind of patterns, some of us in different parts of the world we could look to sort of coordinate. So we say, right, I've got this relationship with print this is what it'll cost us. We'll do a batch of 10 held in the UK or in the EU somewhere. So that could be an option to some of the international shipping problems where we're able to send from different parts of the world. So it's not all from the US.
An Amazon gift card.
Yes, things like that. And I suggested the same thing a couple of years ago or a few years ago, Martin, when I was in Australia, to find print shops for t-shirts or stickers. So that's a great idea to keep in mind. But yeah, in general, regardless of the blockers that we currently have, shipping and otherwise, that's one thought, that we can get people to register early if we give them something.
Yep.
I have a related question. Martin, I see your post on LinkedIn, but I can't share it. Just wondering.
Oh, that's odd. I wonder if that's because it's the event. I'll do another post which is just about it and with a link to the event, so it can be shared. But
Are we looking for a promo for people who just register to encourage them to register or to do work for it?
I think right now the focus has been on trying to get people to register. Not that any discussion is okay, but that's what we've been talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Well, a gift card would be too much for that.
Right. Well, okay. Maybe. Yeah. The idea of using, swag promos, whether they be virtual or real, to promote the event, it seems to me certainly worth discussing, but it comes with costs. And I think if anybody, any ideas or somebody willing to look into options, of course, the one of the issues is that we've kept things really low cost with Backdrop in the past. So we'd have to figure out how to budget and how to allocate and handle the money part of it too, which is another thing. We don't have any costs really for this event. So it isn't like we have a process to handle, how, again, Drew and I go back in planning Drupal Camp. We always had a treasurer, right? We had a process by which invoices were submitted and taken care of, and we had a budget, and we've never even had to deal with that. So when we bring up the idea of swag, it isn't just picking what to do. It's okay, how do we budget for it? How do we? So there is a whole a bunch of steps that have to happen. And if people think that that's a good idea, we can talk about it, but we got to talk about the whole process. How do we make it happen?
A free ebook is a good thing, or free something related to Backdrop, if not a whole ebook. I would make my book available.
Sure.
When it's finished. It's not quite finished.
Right. Well, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. This is Drew. It's my hunch, or at least, my idea would be that I think maybe it would be better to focus on people who don't know about Backdrop, and give them a reason to care. So, for example, easy upgrades to Drupal 6, easy upgrades to Drupal 7. I think kind of reaching out to new people. I think there's an opportunity right now as the world is kind of staring down Drupal 7 and with anxiety. And I think if we can create reasons for people to come, which are well-written content on how to, how great it is to upgrade from Drupal 6 or 7 into Backdrop, and then and have sessions around that. I think that's kind of where my head's at.
Yeah, I think, Drew, though, our big question is how do we reach those people? And a quick update, because I don't see any reason we shouldn't just say this. There has been talk about advertising in the weekly drop, and we thought that initially when this idea first came up, we weren't sure that they would be willing to take an ad from Backdrop, and then we had reason to believe they would, and in the end, I think they got nervous. So Anyway,
So I think
so
there's
that was one way we were going to go that isn't open to us anymore. But we have other ideas. Go ahead.
so I think there's definitely a little bit of a chicken and egg problem there. You can't send some people to a blog post or a white paper or whatever until it's written. So there's a little bit of a leap of faith, but my hunch is that spending small budgeting, like the scant resources that we have on directing new people to content like that is probably a more valuable way to use limited resources than enticing people with sign up benefits.
Sure. Well, the PMC had authorized money for a weekly drop ad, and so the question would be: are there other ways we might spend that money to have a similar effect?
Drew, I have a question about this writing effort. What would be ideal scenario to collaborate on this? We have internally for Fibonacci, we've written a couple of articles, but we are not, we're kind of in the middle of this series and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to publish them.
I had a hard time understanding you or hearing you, Irina.
Sorry, my apologies. I'm not sure why my brand new headphones are not working well, but I'll hold it like this. My question is, we wrote a couple of articles and we have professional writer and stuff, but I would like to collaborate with someone to find places to publish them. Drew, are you open to joining forces on this, or?
Sure.
Okay. Should I reach out to you directly?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, cool. We'll send you our writings for suggestions and review. Thanks.
Well, that suggests to me a good question, which is writing blog posts on backdrop.org about Backdrop Live is obviously something we should do, but it doesn't get us to new audiences, right? The people that are coming to backdrop.org are already aware of Backdrop Live, we hope. And maybe we need to be getting content about Backdrop Live onto other sites, and who and what would they be?
Well, if there are ads, so so yes, that's good too. But I think putting a blog post on backdrop.org makes sense, and we can spend some small amount of ad budget, or like point LinkedIn at those things or Twitter at those things, and then do kind of what you suggested. Make sure once those things are published that everybody hits retweet, comments, etc. There's you can go a long ways with just that sort of social power with $0 spent. And if you want to put Google ads or Twitter ads or Facebook ads or other ads, to help bump it up even higher, I think that's one way to do it.
I just did a search on web developer groups, web developer forums, that sort of thing. There must be hundreds of such groups that we could target just to make a post on those groups that this is a interesting meeting that's coming up for developers to learn more about Backdrop, a substitute for Drupal 7, and reach those people in a targeted way. They're already a member of some web development forum or group, and non-specific to a particular platform, just in general. And there's lots of developers out there that are part of those groups. Facebook groups probably, could be a bunch of them.
One of the things that comes up frequently is who should we be targeted? Should we be focused on Drupal 7 users or just potential website builders in general? And I think our general response has been, especially this year, that while we want, to reach as many people as possible, that it seems to make sense to be focused at least somewhat on Drupal, the Drupal 7 users. We have in the past tried to hit all of the link. There's a whole number of different Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups that target Drupal, and we've tried to get ads in as many of those types of groups as we can. We could certainly, I'm sure we could do better and could appreciate any help with that. Also, if we get any engagement in those discussions would be helpful. Matthias, who's not with us today, and for those who don't know, is an active member of our community from Switzerland and a little bit more of a marketer than maybe some of us. And we have a website that he tried to sort of cater to the search terms Drupal alternatives. And he actually did a little bit of Google ad. I think he did a small Google ad buy on his own as kind of an experiment. And I asked him if he thought, based on his experiences, that there might be some value into trying a small Google ad buy on some targeted keywords for Backdrop Live. And I didn't get a definitive answer from him. But if anybody else here has experience in that area and thinks that that might be a useful thing to do, please speak up.
I've seen, I mean, like this, so I've been at Pantheon for a long time. It's a really common tactic, and I think it generally, so I would be supportive of that as a smart thing to try.
Well, one of the great things about it is you can try for a very limited budget, right? I mean, you got to apply enough to allow it to work, but you kind of pick your budget, right?
Totally.
So,
yes.
So you can, for $100, do a Google ad buy. That may not be enough to get results, but and that's what we need advice on, right? Is like how big of a buy we would have to do in order to actually evaluate it.
Are there?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It would be based on like the keywords you want to target. So something like
Right.
Drupal 7 alternatives or Drupal 7 upgrade or Drupal end of life, things like that. You could have very specific things, and the search volume on those is probably kind of low. But like Google sets the prices. So,
right.
But I imagine, for the cost of a weekly drop ad, there is, you could at least put your foot in the water and see from there.
Sure.
Are there podcasters who have podcasts targeted towards developers and users and creators of websites, and they may have 1,000, 10,000 people listening to their podcast, and they could do a podcast on Backdrop? We could suggest that. Lots of podcasts out there.
How do we reach them, Sarvashri? I think that's the issue.
Well, first you have to identify them. These people who have podcasts, you would search for a web development podcast, and then you contact the artist connected with that podcast and show them what we have. Show them why it's important. And it would be something new. They're always looking for material.
Well, I think we just need somebody willing to take that on then, that would be invested in doing that, because you have to come up with the contacts and reach out to them, probably one by one. So.
Yeah, that's true. But if we only had a few of them with a large following do a podcast on Backdrop, it could have a huge impact.
Jen, you've been on a few podcasts. I know the Lullabout one used to have like a Drupal calendar, and when I'm trying to wonder, I don't know if any of the current podcasts that we've been on have like a calendar that we could, let them know and see if they would mention us.
Yeah, we could. I mean, I don't know about calendar stuff. We could reach out to the podcast in general and be like, hey, this is our Backdrop Live schedule. Could you maybe announce whatever if you're announcing other events? And I don't know, maybe even if they don't have a calendar that they work with, they might start one. So it could be a good idea.
What about, is Drupal still a thing? It's been, and of course I'm not at my desktop, so I can't actually see.
Googling.
But like, I last time I looked, it was still a thing, and it's self-submitted, and I think it's just based off of stuff that is, or once upon a time at least, was based on events posted to Drupal events, groups.drupal.org.
Yeah.
And have we, like, let's add one. Like, I don't think anybody's, like, gonna. I don't know. I think that's worth doing.
We probably will get in a lot of trouble for adding one without confirming with the Drupal Association that it's okay. And my guess is that if we did try that, we would be shot down.
Really?
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My general impression is that like everybody's sort of aware that Drupal isn't doing really well right now. And so like sensitivity levels to anything that is perceived as bad for Drupal is higher than usual. So it's my general impression.
I get on that topic, I get the feeling that within the community that a lot of people are sympathetic with us because they do see us as an option for these sites. But at the higher levels, that may be less true, like at the Drupal Association. Go ahead.
Yeah, the reason that the Drupal Association is upset is because there are a bunch of people in the community who see us as a viable alternative. And so for them, that seems like more news that's bad for Drupal. Because what they really want is everybody to move to Drupal 9 or Drupal 10, and they're not getting that result. And so I think broadcasting other alternatives is contrary to their current.
I've been to SFDOG recently, and community has lots of different conversations about different CMSs. And I brought this idea of inclusion and diversity for CMSs as well. And this, I think, is very appealing idea. It's very difficult for people to advocate for one system or another system because one size doesn't fit all. So it is important to start conversation from perspective of one size doesn't fit all, and we're talking about diversity and inclusion, because starting with like, well, Drupal is better, WordPress is better, or Joomla is better, Backdrop is better, is usually unproductive. I think if you start conversation from perspective of the use case and what is right fit for the job, people are more receptive.
What happens a lot in these meetings is that we talk a lot about what the message should be, but our problem is how to get the message out. And right, so it isn't that, you know, we have lots of great ideas about what we should be telling people and how, you know, what kinds of messages we should be sending. But what we're really lacking and need help with is how to get that message out. How do we get new audiences? How do we reach them? How do we get on podcasts or get blog posts written about us? Those are what we need help with.
Well, I propose that we sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but since we have only 3 minutes left, I propose that at the end of the meeting, there's like 10 minutes for people to say, here's my action item, and I'm going to volunteer. And I'm going to say, my action item is to connect directly with Drew, show our article, edit it, and figure out if we can publish it somewhere in addition to Fibonacci Web Studio blog within next week. Thank you.
That's an action statement I like.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help with that. And let's get it on Backdrop, like on the official site as well. And you know, if we can maybe direct some ads, I'd be happy to put some time and help where I can with these things as well.
Drew, thanks.
Yeah, I was just going to jump.
Sorry, quick question. What is the best way to connect to you? Email, Slack, Zulip?
Email works.
I was just going to say that I think one of the things that we don't do very well, or that we're really reluctant to do in the backdrop community, to sort of put people on the spot and say, what are you going to do next, or to directly ask people. We wait for people to step up and volunteer. And Irina, what you're suggesting is that we go around the room and just sort of ask people what they're going to do, which is not something we're good at, but I agree with you that it's really something that I think effective organizations tend to do better, right? Is just be direct. And if people aren't able to do things, that's fine. But sometimes people want to be asked, and just waiting for people to volunteer isn't always effective. I don't know. Does go ahead, Greg.
I plan to, not only now, but in general, I hear what you guys, the concerns that you have with regards to a Drupal association, but I do plan to steer things politely. As in, as in part of the community, because I feel it's my right and no one should stop me from doing that. And because I do understand that there's members of the community that are feeling, you know, positive about Backdrop, then I don't feel that it's right that we are not being included as option or whatever, endorsed, whatever. I don't feel it's right. And the Drupal association should be working for the community, not for the benefit of the community. Yeah.
Their goal is fairly clearly stated. It is not about the benefit of the community, it's about the benefit of the software.
Fair enough.
And so they think that like helping people use the software, move to different software might be better for those people, but it's bad for the software. And so it's not part of their mission. We've sort of been around this with them a couple of times before. I would love to have more people pushing the conversation, but I don't think it can come from me or myself anymore, because we've sort of tried it and failed. And I think that if we went back to it again, they would be like, we've already had this conversation. But if it came from new voices with new opinions, it would probably hit them with new perspective on it. And, you know, anyone else could share their opinion. So Greg, if you feel strongly about this, which sounds like you do, I would definitely encourage you to start the conversation and see if you can get different results.
Yeah, and even if the Drupal Association have that goal, as you said, which is fair enough, I'm sure that there's some space about where community voices can be heard, which is, I don't know, outside whatever limits the Drupal Association may have set, right? So I'll try to approach it that way, and I'll try to be polite and respectful along the way, as I always am.
Sure. I mean, to be clear, people are talking about Backdrop in lots of Drupal venues. It isn't that it isn't happening. It's just that it's not endorsed or sanctioned at the top level. And anytime we start getting into things like DrupalCal or the weekly drop, anything that's kind of institutionalized, that's where we start to run into roadblocks, right? But in terms of forums, you see us, you know, we post all over the place and people talk about us all over the place, and nobody's like saying you can't do that, right? So there are plenty of places we can keep raising our voices. So,
yeah.
Okay, so that's what Greg's going to work on. I'm going to get the newsletter out. It's the thing I'm working on right now.
Anyone else?
I can help Greg do whatever he's doing. Because I think it's good if you have two people working together to make something happen. If you're just doing it by yourself, it's not as good.
I am working on the events website right now.
Cool.
Okay. I'm working on LinkedIn, and I'm thinking about what different angles around Backdrop Live I can push out in posts. So what I'm planning to do is what my plan in my head. I'm going to do a little post just about the unconference and what it means and why that means that people have. If you've got a question, you can ask it. Get in there, and let's talk about it. And I'm also going to pick a few of the topics and highlight those where I feel they'll have a wider audience. So that's what I'm planning over the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, do
I'm
you
all-
have a list of assets that we can send out? Brochure type things, web page list of web pages about Backdrop that would be attractive to these people instead of just the landing page, or just any kind of assets that would be used in marketing?
I think we have a lot of that stuff, Sarvashri, but maybe not packaged as neatly as we could. So if you and I'd be happy to talk to you about that, and maybe pull together some of the things that we have. We have a little press kit that just has really simple things like logos and things. We do have some places on our website that list a lot of the resources and articles that have been written about us. But maybe it would be nice to create kind of a, I don't know what this would be called in PR terms, but almost a more up-to-date sort of press release.
A press package.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Hey,
think
folks,
doing-
I need to drop. Sorry. Thank you so much. Look forward to working on this with everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Drew. Good to hear
Thanks.
from you.
Same thing, Drew, I sent you an email, and my apologies, I have to hop on the next meeting, so it was great
good.
seeing everyone. Drew, I sent you an email, sorry, I sent you an email. I will work on my microphone for next meeting, and bye, it was great seeing everyone.
Okay, good to see you.
Bye.
Quick process point. We're wrapping up now. There is the weekly dev meeting comes up next. Nate won't be able to make it, so that might be a little less formal than usual, but we will be having a dev meeting in a minute. John, can I put you on the spot? Did you get invited to today by Irina, or did you come with a particular thing in mind? Or
Oh,
did you just-
yeah, I've been looking at my Drupal 7 sites. I have about 40 or 50 of them. And we even have a few Drupal 6. And we've discovered that the extended support for Drupal 6 is coming to an end abruptly in about a week or so. And it really lit a fire under us about what is the future of these sites. I'm exploring Drupal 9. You know, it could be a possibility, but many of these sites are 4 or 5 pages. And, you know, they don't have any contrib modules or very, very few. Seems like the perfect platform to move to would be Backdrop CMS. You know, you've got almost all the modules that I'm going to need already part of the core. So I've already started doing some of those upgrades. So I've run into some stuff. I'm looking for some guidance on how to open issues and stuff.
Okay.
I want to help with that.
How does your experience inform the discussion we're having about Backdrop Live? How do we reach folks like you, or better, make Backdrop Live more useful to you?
You're facing a tough issue, and you know we've run camps before and stuff, so we know that you get half your signups in the last 2 weeks, and it just wreaks havoc on your planning process. Other camps have tried other things, you know, like offering discounts if they're charging, or you know, other things. I've done email blasts. I really haven't found anything that's effective. Just, you know, continuing to remind people, hey, you know, this is coming and it's only 2 weeks away and maybe you should sign up now. Having a big mailing list helps. So LA Drupal was a pretty big community. Not so much these days on our monthly meetups, but you know, we can still try and get the word out on things.
Okay, John, I'm going to really put you on the spot here, but it's not as big a ask, I think. In fact, I'm going to argue it's in your interest. It's an unconference. We need people, so we rely on people to suggest topics. And we have this dilemma, right, is that some people don't want to get involved until they see a topic that interests them. On the other hand, we want the community to nominate topics. I think something you could do that would be really helpful would be to nominate a topic and just facilitate a discussion. And we wouldn't be asking for a big presentation, but to talk, you know, it could be something like, you know, Backdrop at a university or something. And I think that would attract other people that are in a similar position to you, but other people who maybe would be less likely to actually put that on the schedule. And none of us feel qualified to put that on the schedule. Is that something you might be willing to do? It's just facilitate a discussion?
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Or
again,
since you mentioned since John, you mentioned the LA community, reach out to them. Since you mentioned that you are attending monthly meetings, maybe that as well. We have look in the house.
Just to be clear, facilitating a session really means convening it, sort of having some questions going, but really just have it. You've been to Backdrop Live, so you know how we do things. So if you could think about that, I'd appreciate it. Or if we could help find somebody else, because I think we know that there are other people in your position, and if we could give them some content during Backdrop Live, that would be good. Do you want to say something, Jen?
I just had a thought. So on our registration form, we ask people, like, what do you want to know about? And sometimes those people turn those things into sessions, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes we just ask them, like, what do you want to learn? But if there was a way that we could, like, publish that list and expose to other people, like, this is what other people want to know about, then I could see that being, even if we don't have something on this schedule, it could be like, these are the ideas for topics. So rather than having like that hard-coded list, or maybe in addition to the list, we just put like, this is what this event people are interested in attending. So I'm going to see if I can mock something up real quick, because I think that'll help with the, even if there isn't content on the schedule for that, having that list of like, this is what people want to talk about this year, I think could still be compelling for signups. Yeah. So I'm going to try and get that out somehow.
Beautiful. Well, our meeting's officially run over into the next one. But again, I think that's okay, but let's try to wrap this up. Does anybody else have anything that they're going to work on? I'm going to put Luke on the spot quick. Luke, do you have any bandwidth to help us with outreach on Facebook this time or not?
So, I mean, I apparently have to clean the lens on this computer.
Something. Or it's the glare from your window behind you.
Something.
It's not glare. Look is dreamy.
Yeah.
I'm in the upside down.
Okay. Are you evading my question?
No. I should do that actually. I wanted to make sure that I was confident about my social position here at Acquia. But it seems all right. I've come out of the closet in various ways. So yeah, okay. Yeah. You count me in. Do we have, actually, this isn't the design meeting, but do we have posters, ads, like designs that represent Spectrum? Like we've had things come and go in the past. I'm curious if there's any that have been worked out at this point.
So Martin did up a little something that he put on Facebook, which is based on, I think,
LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, excuse me, which I think might be based on something that other people did before or not. I don't know. It's very similar. But yeah. I don't think maybe Martin would object to me saying that we could do something better or flashier.
Definitely. If we've got ideas for better backgrounds, I'm all for it.
Getting a little better artwork or like an event specific poster, I think would be really great, and it would help us get some social media attention. If that's something you could do, that would be wonderful.
So, is there like an overriding theme that's developing for this particular Backup Live? Is there?
That's a good question. It might have helped in terms of marketing to have like a theme, but we don't. So, and I'm not. Well, and this meeting is wrapping up now. How should we? Quick point of question: should we officially end this meeting and just keep chatting, or what should we do? Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. So hold on, Luke. We're going to come back to your question, but we're going to turn off the video camera and end this meeting. Okay. And then we'll be getting ready for the dev meeting, possibly in a little bit. Okay.